Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose on Amazon.com today. The DC Extended Universe ended on a whimper with the box office failure of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Now, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was projected to open poorly by Warner Brothers Discovery executives at $40 to $45 million over the Christmas weekend. However, the actual numbers for the Christmas weekend show Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom opening at only $38 to $39 million, close to $6 million off projections, making it one of the biggest flops in superhero movie history, actually surpassing Marvel Studios' The Marvels. Now, this is a complete 360 for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which was one of 2018's biggest hits and was one of the biggest hits for Warner Brothers at the time, making over $1 billion and basically being one of the top films in 2018 next to Marvel Studios' Black Panther. However, those fortunes have completely reversed for Warner Brothers Discovery as related to Aquaman sequel, and this sequel basically turned out to be one of the biggest bombs as related to the entire superhero movie genre. And with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom performing even worse than Marvel Studios' The Marvels, it's clear that the entire superhero movie genre is basically at a point where it's proving not to be profitable for the movie studios. And while some people want to deny reality as related to superhero movie fatigue, it's clear that the audience is not interested in superhero movies at this point, because if audiences were interested in superhero movies, a larger group of people would have gone out to those movies, because back in 2018, the first Aquaman went on to become one of the biggest hits of the holiday season. But in 2023, almost 5 to 6 years later, audiences have proven that they've basically grown tired of superhero movies in a marketplace where superhero content has basically saturated the entire market. Now, in the last 5 years, since the popularity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe peaked with Avengers Endgame, lots of people who were fans of superhero movies basically started to get tired of them, because studios like Warner Brothers Discovery and Disney basically flooded the market with so much content as related to superhero content, like on Disney Plus, where you had multiple shows. And with the DC Extended Universe, we got lots of movies, and this basically wound up overwhelming customers who got tired of seeing these movies basically roll off an assembly line like Chevy Citations from 1980, and like those GM X-body cars, they were not of the high quality that they were back like they were in 2018. Now, back in 2018, superhero movies were special and unique because they weren't coming out all the time, but over the course of the last 5 years, studios have been rolling out these films again, like Chevy Citations on the assembly line of the GM plant. And as they have been doing this, what happens is the audience has started to become indifferent, and they've started to become indifferent to these movies because these movies are basically the same thing all the time. And as they've become the same thing all the time, they are just made to be quick cash grabs for the studio, who have stopped focusing on the quality that we used to get in superhero movies like we did with 2008's Iron Man and 2017's Wonder Woman. It was those films that had some level of quality and some standard for storytelling. Unfortunately, all of that was completely lost as studio executives got caught up in looking to make money on these films. And as they got caught up in looking to make money on these films, what happened is the quality started to decline. Now, as the quality started to decline, there was a lot of controversy with films like Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom. And Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom's box office was basically undermined, I believe, by one of its stars, Amber Heard. And it was undermined by Amber Heard's controversies as related to her trial with Johnny Depp. Now, in this civil trial with Johnny Depp, Amber Heard wanted to make it like she was a victim. However, she was presented as someone who was abusing Johnny Depp. And with Amber Heard basically losing the trial, she basically tarnished the reputation of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, because as one of the stars of the movie, she was supposed to be a hero on screen, but with her being presented as a villain and shown to be a villain, this basically was one of the things I believe de-incentivized people from being motivated to see this movie. That and people basically in the test screenings saying the film was so bad that they wound up walking out. I mean, with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, you had a whole bunch of stuff happen behind the scenes to damage this film's brand and reputation, and with the film's brand and reputation damaged as related to the chatter and all of the gossip revolving around the film, there was no way to build anticipation for this film. And this was even before the WGA and SAG strikes went on, because this was something that was happening before all of that drama as related to actors and writers trying to get compensation. This project was basically bogged down with a lot of bad press, and the project was also bogged down with a lot of developmental issues as related to its whole concept. This film basically had to be reshot because of issues with the film. So a lot of the quality control issues that basically have been undermining a lot of superhero movie projects basically hurt Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And instead of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom being the exciting adventure that people wanted to see, what happened was we got a mediocre film with subpar special effects and a very terrible story. And this film basically proved to be the nail in the coffin for the DC Extended Universe. And as the nail in the coffin for the DC Extended Universe, it might also be a start of a nail in the coffin for the entire superhero movie genre. Because at this point, the Warner Brothers Discovery studio has gone 0 for 4 for superhero movies in 2023. And if you look at 2022, they've basically gone 0 for 5. And if you go back to Batman v Superman and Superman Man of Steel, they have basically wound up striking out each time with only 2 box office successes, Shazam and Wonder Woman, and every other movie has basically been a box office failure. So all of these adaptations of the DC Extended Universe have basically been proven to be just as big a failure as the Berlantiverse in connecting people with DC characters. And this basically, it shows, again, this is the nail in the coffin for the superhero genre over at Warner Brothers Discovery, because now there is talk of Warner Brothers Discovery being on the brink of bankruptcy after taking loss after loss on these superhero movies, and with Warner Brothers Discovery also going into talks, hoping to get a merger with Paramount Global, or hoping that the Comcast will come in and look to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, but I doubt they get any sort of merger or buyer, with them being $44 billion in debt, and with Warner Brothers Discovery just continuing to produce flop after flop I don't really see anybody looking to buy anything if Warner Brothers Discovery continues making flops like Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. And Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom basically is the film, again, I believe is the one that shows us that the audience is burnt out on superhero movies, and that this whole concept that people are trying to say isn't true about superhero fatigue is a real thing. Because if people wanted to see superhero movies, they would have gone to see them, but people are tired of superhero movies. Basically, they aren't special anymore the way they were back in 2008 with Iron Man, when it was a one unique film, and it built up to the Avengers, where we got films that they weren't only coming out every year or every couple of years. Now that they come out basically every couple of months, nothing is special about superhero movies, and superhero movies at this point fail to answer the critical question I have to answer before I put fingers to the keyboard for a screenplay or a novel, or an audience has to think about before they put money down for it, and that is, why should we care? It's hard to care about superhero movies at this point because they're nothing special. They basically come out every week. And the great irony about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is people said that Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom basically felt like a comic book, but sadly, even though it felt like a comic book, the story wasn't strong enough to resonate with audiences, and that's why the film was overall a failure, because in spite of all of the drama going on and everything going on behind the scenes, the film just wasn't good enough, and it wasn't good enough basically because of the weak script, and these weak scripts are the thing that are basically the common denominator with all four of these DC Extended Universe movies and Black Adam failing. All four of these movies possibly had the same issue in that the scripts were very comic book-like. Unfortunately, the scripts were two-dimensional, and that's what I saw when I watched Black Adam, and it's also what I saw in Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and I'll be taking that movie to the barbecue in a future video. I just need to find time to film it. But all of these films, yes, they were very comic book-like, but they lacked real depth and real multi-dimensional characters. They just fell really flat. And that's basically the reason why these movies wound up flopping, because they just weren't good enough to get people excited in an economy where people are struggling to make ends meet due to inflation. I mean, due to inflation, people are allowed here thinking before they spend a dollar, and with movies costing anywhere from $15 to $20 a ticket, they're not seeing anything that gives them the highest entertainment value for their dollar. And with mid-movies like Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom, what people do is watch these movies on streaming. And streaming is what people do. They wait for these kind of movies to come to streaming, because if you can get a deal on HBO Max, or Max as it's called, for $2.99, you can watch one of these movies that out here that have mid-reviews for pennies on the dollar, rather than spend a weekend and be disappointed and spend $15 to $20 on a ticket and $20 or $25 more. So Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom was the fourth and final loss in the fourth quarter. And with this fourth quarter loss, as related to Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, I have a feeling some heads are gonna roll at Warner Brothers Discovery if the company doesn't go into bankruptcy, because I don't know how James Gunn can go out here and reboot the DC universe with the company on the brink of collapse. Because if they're producing films of this poor quality, then I don't know if you can go out here and bring out a new DC universe to an audience that now is apathetic and burnt out and get them excited for it. No, I don't see how they're going to get people excited for a new DC universe when they've already been through two DC universes, the Berlantiverse on TV and the DC Extended Universe, and they haven't really been that exciting, not to mention other films like The Batman. I mean, I believe that people are just burnt out on superhero movies. I've been saying this ever since about about Captain America Civil War, and that people want to see some different stories about people. They want to see some stories about people out here who are real and human, and they want to see some stories about ordinary people because at this point we've seen so many superheroes and we see a world that's not being saved by anybody. So people are looking for something different, and I believe it's time for the studio executives to switch the gears, because if they continue to go out here and keep making superhero movies, they're going to put Hollywood in limp mode, and as they put Hollywood in limp mode, they may wind up breaking Hollywood, because it's clear the audience wants something different. From Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom performing worse than the Marvels, it's clear that the audience wants a completely different film. And 2024 and 2025, if Warner Brothers Discovery wants to stay alive, they need to go out here and find a different kind of movie to entertain audiences, or they're just going to be another footnote in Hollywood and cinematic history. Now, if you want to pick up some of my action-packed fantasy fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, and my Black sorority novel, The Thetas, my Black vampire novel, Eternal Night, and some of my other books. You can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to try out my first full comic, John Haynes at Death's Door, you can find that comic in paperback on Lulu.com right now, and you can pick up a paperback copy for the same price that people pledged on the 2022 Kickstarter. And if you want to see me make more videos about the film industry, the superhero films, and fantasy and science fiction, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available, paperback and Kindle Unlimited, ISIS, the main event. It's carnage inside of a steel cage when the goddess next door steps in the squared circle with the beast from the boss in this action-packed all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, the main event, in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS, My Sister, My Frenemy. It's a sister act as the goddess next door and the devilish diva team up in this action-packed ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS, My Sister, My Frenemy in paperback and e-readers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.